IVM.
Today let's discover the world of a designer, a boy from a small town in Kerala who paved his way to become the artistic director for one of the most iconic fashion brands in the world, Moynat. Welcome to Absolutely Right, a show that celebrates and decodes minds of some amazing achievers. I am your host Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist and a high-performance coach. Our guest today is an unconventional designer from Paris, Ramesh Nair, who is the artistic director for Maison Moynat, a trunk maker and leather goods house that had been dormant for 30 years before Ramesh was asked to revive it by the LVMH group. Ramesh was born in a small town in Kerala to a father who worked in the army. He struggled his way through many schools around the country, being an undiagnosed dyslexic, and was part of the very first batch of NIFT Delhi, National Institute of Fashion Design, in 1988. After graduating, he created one of the earliest fashion labels in India and paved his way to the fashion capital of the world, Paris, where he worked with Hermes for 10 years. The recording of this episode went on for 2 hours. It was tough to edit as his inspiring story had so many moments that kept all of us on the edge of our seat. In this engaging conversation, Ramesh shared his story and spoke about what did he learn from his experience of working with his mentor, maverick designer Makta Margiela, for almost 10 years in Hermes. Why does he believe that pursuit of excellence is an innate quality and no school, no teacher can teach you that? And as I looked at his handwriting, I decoded the specific decision-making process that often confuses most of his colleagues. He will join us on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I want to remind our Tamil-speaking audience about the new show from Kadai Podcast. The previous season was Punyan Selvan. The new show that we're doing is Sivakamyan Sabata. Kavita Jiva is the host of this show. Basically, what she does is she retells these old classics in a modern idiom. I think you'll really enjoy that. Quickly running through some of the other guests that we had this week. Luke Catino showed up on Cyrus Says, where he and Cyrus had a great conversation about fitness and all things related to that. Rahul Dakuna was on Gauri Devi Dayal's show. This rounds on me. Again, great conversation around brands and things like that. Maruk Inayat had Kaveri Banzai on her show to discuss Sushant Singh Rajput's death and the effect it's going to have on Bollywood as it goes forward. Archana Vora, who is a director of small and medium businesses at Facebook, she was on Advertising is Dead, talking about the kinds of work that Facebook is doing with smaller businesses. And remember, Edges and Sledges continues its fan series. Do definitely check that out. And last, one final thing, that Cock and Bull this week was really interesting. Cyrus, Kunal Vijayakar, Gauri Devi Dayal, and myself spoke quite a bit about the restaurant industry and the challenges that they're facing in this pandemic. So do definitely check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
So Ramesh, thank you so much for being on this conversation on our episode. I am super excited to know about your story and especially about the initial journey and, why you made these choices the way you did, like where this whole process began.
Yeah, thank you for having me on board. It seriously took me a bit of time to get on board. First of all, I don't know if you know that I'm extremely, what's the word for it? Camera shy. I'm extremely shy. So it's a huge effort.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's the reason why I prolong things to make sure that if it's really, somebody's really, wants to do something, it happens. Otherwise it doesn't. I normally let go. Yeah, no, thanks for getting me on board. It sounds really interesting, and I think we can have an interesting conversation.
Sure.
Where did the journey start? It started in this godforsaken part of Kerala, which is called Melatur. Now, try and find it on Google. It'll be quite fun looking for it. It's really, when you say back of the beyond, it's back of the beyond.
Okay.
So it's this little village in Kerala, 1965.
Okay.
So this is before these prehistoric times, and I was brought up in this place with no electricity, no running water. I saw electricity for the first time in my life when we moved to Pune.
And how old were you then?
I was 5, 6 years old.
Okay.
So till then, the only electricity you would see is when, we would go maybe on a temple trip to Guruvayur or maybe Calicut.
Okay.
Everything was in this little part of town, and there was nothing there. Well, yeah, we would see electricity when we would watch a movie.
On those projectors, the old style projectors. How nice. Okay.
And where the film gets cut off, and it's like, I don't know, remember who it was. There was this cartoon character, Calvin and Hobbes. He used to always say that his father used to tell him, the world is black and white those days. Yeah, it was black and white.
Okay.
You didn't have anything. You didn't have color. Color came on somewhere in the 70s.
70s, right. So when you moved to Pune, so when did design happen? Like your whole curiosity, was it like there from the beginning as a child?
Drawing and designing was always part of daily life. So those days, it comes back to the fact that I'm dyslexic. I got to know about it when we moved to France.
Okay.
I had no idea about it. So I used to think I was dumb and not so smart.
Most of the dyslexic people have that as a belief, including myself. So I agree.
Yeah, but I guess the generation now, you guys are not told by your parents that you're stupid.
I think new generation now, I agree, but not in my generation. I think.
You were told by the teachers, by everybody that dull boy. That used to be my comment on my little booklet every. She's seen it, so she knows.
No.
So it used to be dull boy, or as good as being your son needs help, kind of a thing. So.
And which also brings in a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment, isn't it?
No, I was not ashamed, nor was I embarrassed.
Okay, that's interesting. So how was your response to it?
I was like, okay, I'm better than the other guys, so it's fine.
That's amazing. So that's because of your drawing?
That's when you compensate your feelings with something else.
Okay.
So I could draw. And I could draw quite well.
Okay.
So to compensate that lack of
academic
mathematics or whatever, I would use drawing as my way of getting out of situations, or a little bit of comedy once in a while, I guess.
Okay.
I was the class clown in certain ways, so you would do that to get over. I used to have a stutter for a little while when I was small, and I think it was linked to being shy or whatever. I don't know. I used to go ba trying to find out words.
Like how all of this came together?
It was always there, but we had no idea. So when you're talking about 60s and 70s, late 60s, late 70s in India, when you talk of design, nothing. It didn't exist.
Oh, exactly.
You had day-to-day things. Started off with living in Melatu. When you wanted to play cricket, the only thing you could get was the coconut, the thing from the
stem,
coconut stem.
Yeah.
So we would fashion that into a bat and play cricket. So that was the first design objects.
True.
If you don't get the ball, you would make rubber band. It's a typical thing you see in the villages where kids make those little cars with a wheel. So it's innovation. It makes your brain work. When you have no access to any kind of toys or whatever, you'd make your own thing.
Being an Indian, being an Asian, actually creating your mark in the fashion industry the way you have sounds so unachievable. So most of the time people think about it, dream about it, but very rarely people manage to cross over and actually have the space that you have created for yourself.
It's a huge fight, and honestly, it's a huge fight. You're not just battling, the notion that Indians or Asians are of a certain category. You're breaking just about every boundary possible. You have to understand that India has always been counted as a manufacturing country.
Right.
Yeah. But it also comes, I think, somewhere along the line from a sad fact. If you look at even historically, most of the interesting design came from outside.
Right.
Mughals brought in the architecture.
True.
We did have very interesting art and architecture, which we kept enclosed, and we made it into institutions which were in a certain way protected by caste or religion. Yeah.
Right.
If you talk about dance or classical music,
It was temple dance.
yeah, it became a temple dance, it became a temple this, temple that. We never brought it out. While in Europe, if you look at art or whatever, it did start in churches, but it went on, it became something,
People could have access to.
yeah, these guys, they painted in churches, but going on from there, it became something which is, accepted, it became a normal, and became it was given credibility. I remember drawing was something last on the list of your studies. Maths would be there, physics, rest, and then drawing right at the bottom.
It's almost like nobody cared. My father was an art director. So
Okay.
I grew up in that culture, and he was a South Indian. So every time we spoke about art and cinema, all these points came along. But other than my father, I never saw anybody actually paying attention to how you drew and what exactly you did in the arts class, so-called. It was neglected completely.
Yeah, totally. And it used to be frustrating. And the moment I started getting an idea as to, so it's like much later on, I've been through all kinds of craziness. I have a degree in zoology.
Okay.
Zoologist in a certain way. So I spent a whole bunch of time in my life doing things which I didn't want to do.
Right.
Always thinking of what am I going to do, because you have your lack of your disabilities, which was not recognized. I almost joined the army.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Very, very close to joining the army.
That's because of the Pune connection with...
My father was in the army, so we traveled all around India. We would land up in the strangest of places, and growing up, it was actually fun. From Melatu, we went off to Pune. We went off to the Andaman Nicobar Islands. Went all around, small little towns in India. Finally, when I reached an age where I needed to go to college, of course, father says, we're going back to Kerala. So we landed back in Kerala. We were initially in Cochin. That was his last posting.
Okay.
So in Cochin, when your 10th standard grades are so bad, colleges don't want you.
Yeah.
Right. The only way I could get in was this college, which was those days the worst possible college to get. It's like the bottom of the pile.
Okay.
Where went to class, you were busy burning buses and breaking things.
Okay.
So that's a place I got admission into. Did my 11th and 12th there. Then dad retired. We went off to our native place, which is right next to Melatu, Manjeri. Manjeri, those days, I think the population must have been 1,000 people and 5,000 cows. Something like that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So we went back to this back of the beyond place, and there's one college which is on top of a hill. And that's the only college around there. I was there, and I did 3 years of degree doing I don't know what.
Zoology, like.
Zoology, yeah. I have practically no recollection of what I did there. I had absolutely no idea what to do. I didn't see any what do you call it? In French we call it avenir, the future. I really didn't see a future. I sold parquet, wooden parquet.
Okay.
Because there was this guy who had bought a wooden parquet from Nepal.
Okay.
And he spoke Hindi. So we partnered for a little time trying to sell parquet. I've installed TV antennas. Third job I did was a medical representative in a medical shop. I'd applied to be an SI, a sub-inspector, a forest officer. I've just gone through just about everything possible. And then one fine day, we used to get the only English newspaper those days we used to get down in Kerala was the Hindu.
Okay.
So, south of India.
Right.
So, in the Hindu paper, you had, there was a page which was the job section.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
So, in that, there was this ad which was NIFT. And NIFT was basically, it was put in a very pretty way. I liked the graphics which came out on that.
Okay.
I applied. So I was from the very first batch of NIFT students.
Okay. So the very first batch, so you actually learned through the process. I'm sure the institute also was figuring out what they wanted to do and how they would.
It was fun because they had decided to set up this school. That itself was, a lot of drama out there because I was called for this interview in Bombay. I actually had trouble putting together clothes.
Of course, from the space that you came from and Bombay and different kind of clothing.
Bombay was a bit of a, you're trying to sell yourself at a fashion school, design school, but I didn't even know what fashion was.
Right.
You didn't have Google to check out and see what's fashion.
Yeah. And all your references would have been around you. Yeah, and people around you who could have helped you would have said the same thing.
So there was nothing even to ask. I don't remember who. I talked to this lady who used to live in Delhi and asked her a few questions. She gave me some nonsense leads.
Okay.
So I think a little bit of what I had in my head was basically what I talked to her. They had asked us to make some clothes. I have absolutely no idea what to do. But yeah, again, coming back to the story of when I started designing. So somewhere in the mid-70s, 80s, when we used to play, we used to watch Bjorn Borg playing tennis. And we used to have these white T-shirts, which were what we used to get in the military canteen.
Right.
And brother and me, we would make designs on them. We would draw on them. So we had things like your Bata shoes.
Right.
Now you have Nike, but those days you didn't have Nike. So you would paint 3 stripes and make it Adidas. But we used to also make our own design, create our own brands those days. So we would make our own, Eastern Star, Western Star, something Star, whatever. That was design.
Okay.
The same way, in French, we have a word called bidouillage, which is basically, what's the equivalent of it? Jugaad.
Jugaad. Figuring it out. Okay.
Figuring it out. So my NIFT interview was Jugaad.
So they saw those designs, or you created something for them?
No, I created 5 pieces. And my local tailor with whom I worked with, he's a guy, basically you have like this shop, which in the end of the day, he'll shut with a wooden shutter.
Oh, right.
In the morning he comes, he puts out this wooden board. You'll see him standing with a scissor.
Cutting, yeah. Like that's how many tailors in smaller towns are there even now. So that's exactly how it works.
Exactly that. Yeah. And my father used to tell him later on when I used to come back on holidays, he used to shout across the road and he'd say, "What are you doing, Ramesh? Where are you?" So my dad would answer and say, "He's a tailor like you." So, so that was basically how it went through.
So from NIFT, when did the actual journey start for you? And did you discover that you are extraordinary student, or people acknowledge that about you? When did you gather that confidence, or did you have somebody believing in you?
So there was one person, and that's this person who I'm very much still in contact with. She's so those days NIFT was basically FIT New York. All our professors came from FIT.
Okay. Wow.
We had like a bunch of American professors who would teach us. So there was a lady, Eva Burnham, who is now in her 80s, and I still meet her in New York. Amazing. So
I'm getting goosebumps as you're talking about this person. Like, it takes so much to believe in a child like this. It's so beautiful.
She's one of those people who, you need. Again, there's something which I always say: at every step in your life, you meet somebody, and that person gives you it's like a trampoline kind of an effect, which makes you jump, and it takes you to a next level. You might not realize it then, but at a certain point of time, when you look back, you say, "Oh, this is the person who made this change in my life." So she used to always tell me, "You have an eye." I used to be frustrated. I used to get, again, bad grades, even at NIFT. I was, again, one of the duffers, but I had certain things which I was good at, which was I used to do clothes which were not the typical thing what NIFT must have looked at that point of time too.
So you are in a way ahead of your time?
I don't know it was ahead of my time, possible, but I think somewhere in the thing was, if I would see something already done in a book,
you won't do it.
I don't want to do the same thing. It has to be something different.
Mm.
And my influences were not based on what I like.
Mm.
It was basically just, it had to be different. Yeah. And if I would see my classmates doing something, it had to be exactly
opposite.
Another
tangent altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, there was a difficulty where technically I was terrible because pattern making and things needs you to have a lot of mathematical skills, which is just not possible for me. But I guess I was a bit good at decent talking with my hand, but I think somewhere I could think a lot differently. So it's difficult to explain. You coming from a very small town, my father was against the fact that I wanted to join
a tailoring school, according to him.
Tailoring school, yeah. So he had practically said it was basically excommunication in a certain way. I was better off joining the army than joining NIFT. So there was a bit of a difficulty there. So I didn't end up landing up in NIFT with, I had nothing to buy anything. So you would be between me and another friend. Luckily, I had a friend of mine. We were in the same category of the miserable ones. Eating food or whatever was like really on a pathetic scale. So we would find ways and means to live by.
So that was your time where you knew you wanted to do this, you knew you loved it, because you know how sometimes you know this when the external scenario or the world validates it. But here you were doing something that you liked and you enjoyed, but the world was still not validating you.
I enjoyed it, but there was always this thing at the back of my mind is, how am I going to make my living out of it? Because again, when you're in the first batch of NIFT, we did not have any somebody ahead of you to say this is a workable job.
Or a model or references.
Yeah, we didn't have a bunch of kids who were before us who said, "Hey, listen, I've got a job here. It's working." We had absolutely no clue. So again, it would go down to this thing of, I have done the studies. What am I going to? Where am I going to earn my living? Kind of,
So when was the first job? When did actually, now you're talking about all the anxiety or the curiosity about what I'm going to do. When did you?
I was, I think, among the first to get a job. I worked at an export house. I will not tell you which one.
Okay.
And I lasted exactly for 6 months. And I went back to the NIFT hostel, by the way.
Okay.
And nowhere else to go.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I went and stayed with her sister.
Really?
Yeah, her sister was my junior. So I went and stayed with her sister. So whenever the warden would come, I had to hide under the bed or I had to hide in the bathroom.
Oh my God.
I went through, I think, a year, or not, almost a year of,
hiding. You stayed there in hiding for 1 year.
Because you would get small little jobs, nothing to really live on in that sense to pay your rent. No. I'd sell sketches of, each sketch would be 100 rupees. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they go photocopy and bring it back. And,
sure.
So after that, I don't know if you heard of this, you must have. Ogan, the shop, Ogan? Yeah, so Ogan was my first decent job.
So from there, the journey began and people started noticing your work and people started understanding how different you were.
Yes, there was a bit of a touch of success there. I was the person who started off the in-house collection for Ogan. Paris happened, it had happened in my head right from the day I was at NIFT.
Okay.
I would go through books or magazines and dream of these things. We were really on the cheapest of the cheapest idiots. So, somebody's come back on holidays. We would ask them to bring us shopping bags from some of the fashion houses. So we would be walking around with a bag which said Saint Laurent. And that is to be where we put all our files and books in. So that was Paris those days, but nothing more than that. Collecting empty perfume bottles. It was important. 93, I went to Italy on a scholarship in Lax Foundation. And I realized that it was my stuff which was being talked about, not
Not there.
I'd done strange things. I'd taken, agarbattis. I had a whole bunch of agarbattis lying in my office.
Okay.
So I'd taken that and made holes on organza.
Okay.
They liked it. And they said, oh, can you make us? And, there were dresses with I don't know how many holes. After some time, I was getting intoxicated by the smoke. So I used to sit outside and make holes, patterns with holes.
Yeah.
There was once, I'd put some stones on a jacket. And the guy he asked me, can you sew the stones? I said, yeah. I didn't realize he wanted me to do the entire jacket. It's like what we pay a karigar.
Yeah.
I was doing that. So I made an entire jacket made of stones and blisters on my fingers and things. And it not just was a central piece of the collection.
Yeah.
He started getting orders on it. And that's when I said, shit, this is serious nightmare here. So I was sitting and doing this for months. I would be sitting and sewing stones.
How amazing.
So, at a certain point, I realized that I am good.
So what I'm understanding from your story, and I think one thing that listeners should also connect with their journey is, so many times things don't fall in place and you do not see a clear path. But in that moment or in that phase of your life, you're supposed to, or if you choose to, do whatever comes your way and still hold on to the journey. Things start changing.
You have to, I was reading somewhere, a lot of guys, I would put myself in that category. I think I saw, I don't know who else, there was a few other guys who done good in life. It was not because of talent. It was not because of luck. It was purely grit. Grit is something which is much more effective than, having somebody push you, it's just pure grit. It's something which I tell my wife also quite often. It's like, yeah, you might be kicked 10 times, but the whole ability to come back, stand up and fight again.
The resilience to do that every time.
And for that, you have to be skinny, you have to be undernourished, and you have to be hungry. Yeah.
Sure.
You go on holidays, you go back home, your mother tells you, why the hell are you troubling yourself? You're looking sukha and you've gone black or whatever. What is the point of doing this? You just go back because you keep fighting. And there's a part of you. So my father never, this is something which we discuss again quite often. So father never believed the fact that I was doing okay. Because at a certain point of time, yes, I was doing these freelances. I was making a hell of a lot of money. Those days it was always cash. So you'd get a wad of notes at the end of the week. So I bought back, backpack and a huge wad of notes just to show my dad, listen, I'm making money. He thought I was selling drugs or I was doing something. He was really furious. He said, what the hell are you doing in life that you're getting this kind of money?
Yeah.
So even that didn't work. So at a certain point I said, no, there's no point. And even very recently, so when we came to Paris and I would get these fantastic, Vogue magazine or whatever, illustrated something, Financial Times or whatever, and at every level it's supposed to be higher. I'd send that across, no reply. And my mom used to ask me, what's that magazine called? Manorama magazine or something.
When will you be covered by that?
Yeah. She says, how is it possible that they don't, you're not there on that? I was like, okay, there's no point in getting into it. Yeah, she would keep some of them. And I think, the reckoning she got was quite recently when Yeshudas gave, recognized my work.
Okay.
Yeshudas did it. I sent her for it, by the way.
Oh, so that was a moment of her life. Like everything made sense.
She's apparently put it up in the living room and she shows it to everybody. So you can be on the Fortune 500 or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, not for your parents.
I went back to school. When I was 34 years old. Around that, yeah, 33 or 34 years old. So that was quite fun too because there's a school called EFM, Institut Français de la Mode, which is a very, name fashion school in France, a very high level, but it's basically a management school.
Okay.
So they had started their first fashion module.
Okay.
You had a guy with striped t-shirt, torn jeans, backpack, walking into this temple of luxury,
Sure.
asking to meet the owner. Doesn't work that way.
Okay.
So waited for about 45 minutes or something. Finally, he landed. We spoke. We became quite good friends. And at that point, he had asked me, do you think of ever working in France? So I said, I would love to, but I don't know where to start. And he said, go back to school. There was a lot of changes in France. So when we were applying for jobs from EFM, you put in your list of designers that you would dream of working with. So on top of the list was this designer called Marta Margiela. He's like the god of conceptual design.
Okay.
I put his name, I put Gaultier, I put some other designers on it. And you have to give it in saying that this is my list of people I want to work with. I remember they looked at it and they said, seriously, are you joking? You should go and work with some kind of an embroidery guy, Lesage or something. Very pissed off about, again, the same questions as where am I going in life?
Sure. Over and over again. So it's literally like moving different areas, coming to all the way to Paris, but still the question about where am I going in my life and is it really worth it? Like, am I at the right place?
We've asked this question many times, and plucking ourselves. In India, we had a certain lifestyle. Rashna was working for a multinational. I was running my studio, even if it was with difficulty. We plucked ourselves at an age where normally people would never have done. She was 30, I was 34, 35. Normally they would have said, have some babies, sit quietly, continue your life. You have a car, you have a decent house, whatever. You're good for a certain thing. We wanted, and it was not a question of getting more.
It was about pursuing what you knew you could do, which is very different than only money and recognition.
Exactly. Can I dig a deeper hole? Can I actually jump into that hole and survive, kind of a thing? Or are you, and at that certain point of time, whether you have, it's again what we talk about grit. It's like, can I run faster than what people think I can?
Or in a way, what I think I can.
What I think I can. And your ability is always, it's measured against yourself, but it's also measured against what you think, you're perceived, in your dreams, you can fly. You really can fly.
Sure.
And it's only that we make ourselves, we create gravity, we create all these things. You ask a little child to draw.
He won't care about any limitation.
There's no gravity. There is no, so that's the way you need to think. It's like, think beyond what you are capable of.
So when you talk about commercial success, and I'm very curious to ask you about your Bombay Paris bag, which was like the signature concept. So your designs, more I looked at it, I felt you definitely brought some humor to it. You brought some eclectic part to it. So when did it shift at some point?
That's the what you call the Joker in me, I guess.
the clown, the class clown came out.
That's important because it takes away the serious part of your day-to-day life. And I think a lot of times it takes away it's a bit like a comedian. You have a lot of voices inside you which is telling you this is not possible, that's not possible. The only way you can get away is by comedy, by making people laugh. And it really helps to soften certain serious situations. I used to joke around all the time. And Hermes was, so finally I was at Hermes. I was working with Margiela. People couldn't believe it because it was practically impossible. When I speak to young design students, and I keep trying to tell them, it's like, you have to keep breaking the molds. Somewhere along the line, I wouldn't say not just in India, but worldwide, when you make things a job, you've taken away half of the
joy,
the progression of whatever, what you can impart to the kid. The way you've explained things, that passion has to be there, whether it's teaching, whether it's architecture, whatever.
So when he looked at your work, when he saw, what had you done different that was impressive?
I'd gone to the flea market, I'd picked up old clothes and reworked it. So Hermes is basically ultimate luxury. There was no way I could make pieces which were ultimate luxury because it was beyond any kind of, something which I could afford at that point of time.
Right.
So I played with things which was basically, ideas where I'd taken a trench coat, cut the sleeves. When it rains, you just pull it up, put it over your head. Just conceptual ideas. There was a jacket, half of a jacket, where you put your hands inside was lined with cashmere, so you keep your hands warm. Small little touches. There's a jacket, you pull up, the sleeves stay because there's something I fitted inside. Just little pieces, and I think about 5 or 6 different things. Exactly what I'd done for my NIFT interview 20 years back.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right.
The same way, because my ability to communicate with my drawing was limited. And I couldn't speak out my ideas. But what I could make with these small little things, there she's back. That seemed to work, yeah.
Okay. So you
I think he saw 3 pieces and he said, when are you joining?
How nice. So that was like a moment for you, Ramesh? Like you literally...
Yeah, it's like penny drops and you say, okay, there, I'm accepted in the what do you call? And again, I went from coming to India to working at the highest level of luxury.
Right.
So it doesn't strike and it doesn't make you think at all. But when you start looking back, yes, it's you have achieved something. Yeah. I didn't know. I didn't go and do some small thing here, small thing there. But the rest of it, yes. From selling a sketch for 100 rupees to being on another level, it makes a difference. We in India, we have a problem. It really comes down again to our problems with levels in society. Our respect for craft. If you don't respect craft, there's no way you're going to get to the next level.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Again, there's some nice stories on this. One day I'm going to sit and maybe write a book on that. So when I was doing my NIFT collection, 97, 98, my final collection, I wanted to do, I would try and find the easiest way out because pattern making was beyond me, or making construction. I was good at sewing, but the rest of it was like it would start going down. So I had worked on a collection which was called Nakab, which is basically based on the burqas. I would have serious trouble now with the way things are going, but those days you could get away with a lot of things. And in Delhi, there's this place called Chandni Chowk.
The famous Chandni Chowk.
Yeah, famous Chandni Chowk. And I would land up at Chandni Chowk and ask, found a karigar who was doing this RE embroidery, but using gold thread. He had like a small room with one box on the side of the room, and there was a little thread, what do you call it, a metal thing hanging where he would hang his shirts and his lungi or whatever, old man. And he used to do my kadai for me. So I would sit with him for days getting the work done. He's never done this kind of thing because he used to do the chadar for the kabra. When you come and make an offer of a cup, you make these, would embroider that. He had no idea what fashion was. He had no idea what clothes were. So I'd give him the pattern, say, stitch this here and do this here. I'd sit for days with him, and every afternoon he would go for his prayer. He would stop his work to do his prayer. He would pull out this metal box. Metal box would open. He would have this little carpet. Put his carpet. He would do his prayers. And it gives you a very good lesson in being humble. The first thing, it's something which this man has. He's doing something amazing for you, and it's the same as you take it on to progression of whether it's Hermes or whether it's what I do at Mana. The workman, he cannot afford that bag that you're making. He really cannot. It's way beyond him to buy that bag. But he's putting in his heart, soul, and everything into that product, which you will sell for a astronomical price. Right? Somebody will buy.
To respect that person's life, energy, or work.
Exactly. And this person who buys it, do they even realize that at the end of that tail of that, there is a person who lives a very normal life, who tomorrow, if he decides to make a bag, you will never buy that because it doesn't have all the name, it doesn't have all the box, the orange box. No, you will not do that. You're buying into an object which you think has got this packaging, which is really not true.
Coming from the middle class Indian background, I always wondered how this whole idea of branding and, my curiosity always remains when I meet people. For some reason, they compensate their self-esteem and their idea of themselves with the brands that they wear. How do you look at it, especially being on the other side where you, in a way, sell that idea to them?
I do sell that idea. So branding is basically, it's like our ISI mark, which we used to get if you go down to the pots and pans in India. Your mom will say, "It's my ISI mark nahi hai, Ad mark nahi hai, we will not buy it." So it's basically you're giving it a standard, a quality standard. Brands normally are supposed to play that game where you buy it Hermes or you buy it Moynat. It would tell you that it's made with a certain
quality and care, and people have experts have put in their time and energy into it.
Put in our fine effort. The person has been trained for many years to create that. That is basically where the branding comes. After that, if the brand becomes bigger than the product itself, it's what we have a problem with at the moment with logos and monograms and stuff like that, where you are buying into something to make yourself feel better in a certain way, but it's like, how do I say, it's like makeup.
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable with your makeup? Are you okay to present your real face to the world? It's that makeup, and the branding becomes your makeup.
So you kind of hide underneath that, and you conceal your actual self.
Exactly, and then maybe the workmanship is worse than it's a question which I've asked a lot of times. Why do we consider something made in India or made in China inferior to something made in France? There are levels,
perceived value of our country.
Exactly. So, and a certain way we are to blame because we don't give importance to our what we do, our careers.
Now, after talking to you, I see this very different level of connection to your roots, and you do not necessarily believe that what you're making.
No, you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid, or it's like snake oil. You don't have to believe in it in a full. What do you call it? You don't have to completely give into it. You have to realize that when whatever you buy, are you buying it for filling up some hole in your life, or is it something which you're buying to get recognized in society? Once you buy it, you suddenly find you have this point of what I would say a point of depression in a certain way,
right?
Because you've got it, and what next? Now what? So it's a problem, and you keep trying to fill in something. Everybody has their own
demons to deal with.
Totally. And
so please tell us about your journey to LVMH and Moynat specifically. Like, how did that happen? That's like a magical story to even imagine and think about.
I think there's a bit of magic, and there is so Hermes. I worked with Marcella. Then I was assisting Gaultier. So all these dreams which
everything that you were on.
it would happen, and it was very strange. So the day Martha was leaving, we went out for lunch, and I was really upset because normally what happens is when a designer leaves, the whole team gets thrown out. I spoke to Martha, and he said, "I want you to stay at Hermes because Martha was Gaultier's assistant."
Okay.
Yeah, so we've gone into a circle, which is, I think, the only one which exists. If you look at it in the world in that sense, among designers, we've gone a perfect circle because I've assisted Margiela, I've assisted Gaultier.
Yeah.
Gaultier, Martha was Gaultier's assistant. So we have like a proper setup there.
Sure.
And he said, you will learn a lot of things, and you will learn a lot of things not to do. Which is like so good as a advice. So again, he's another person I would put as the
next mentor.
Cost for me to go to the next step or whatever. So Gaultier finished his stint at Hermes, I think for 7 years or something, 6 or 7 odd years. I was going through a serious dilemma again. What next? Because you start stagnating at a certain point, and I was getting older. I had no clue what to do. The bags which I did for Hermes at that point of time, again, it is to be, I should have been fired for it because I break the rules. There's a bag which is called the Shadow. If you ever find it, you might. It's now being sold again.
Okay.
It looks like as if the bag has
a shadow.
A shadow. Yeah, it's like a, what do you call it? A trompe-l'oeil. When you're a kid, you put a coin and you shade on top of it paper to give you the effect.
Yeah.
So it looks like a Birkin, but it's actually a Birkin which has got leather on top of all the metal parts.
Okay.
It's a freaky bag if you ever find it. So I made that bag. I get a call for, I didn't even know what it was for. Went and met up with this bunch of people in a room. Initially thought it was for Vuitton. And I discovered that it was for bags. Once I figured out it was Moynat, I remember I came back home, signed the contract, said, okay, I'm joining up. Came back home, and the first thing I said was like, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
Because the brand was shut for 30 years before you.
No, because I'd never done a bag in my life. I've done bags at Hermes, but you're with an atelier which knows what they're doing.
Right.
I don't have to, invent out techniques for that matters. I just have an idea. I go to the atelier, I tell them I want to create this with a drawing. They know what to do. When you're starting a brand from zero,
you have to collect a team.
Yeah, I'm not a technical person in that sense who's designed and made bags all my life, no.
And still, LVMH owners decided to take a chance with you.
They had never, ever done anything from zero.
Exactly.
Europe,
so everything about it is
started from zero.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was basically I had an empty blank page, and I was doing what I wanted to do on it.
And you revived it into this very different, eclectic, very innovative kind of a brand.
Yeah, it is, again, you look and see what's in the market and you do exactly the opposite.
So not following the trend again.
There was a lot of what you call, you would go back and forth with the big team. They would tell you that this is what works. I'd say, no, I'm not doing what works. Do something different. So it was again jumping into the water, learning to swim, see if I could stay afloat.
So if we have to decode this process, Ramesh, when do you know that what works and what doesn't work? Like, one is going against the current, and that becomes one guideline that I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. But then there is also the moment where you can make any choice, but you choose that one. How do you decide which one is the choice to make?
Seriously, it's not. There have been bad choices. There have been a lot of bad choices, but I think the better choices overshadow the bad choices.
Sure.
Or you it's like you don't remember pain, but you remember a lot of your joyful things. So I guess the mind takes off the parts which are sad or pathetic. I wouldn't say that you learn from it, because you make mistakes all the time, same over and over again. It's stupid to say that, I've learned from a mistake. No, you never learn from a mistake. It's a different mistake that you make the next time. So, I guess also you have certain signs which you start understanding at a certain point of time. There are times when I've come back home and I have really thought that, okay, this is the end. My career is finished. I've screwed up such a big way.
And knowing your journey, it must have happened many times.
Many times. It's happened so many times. Like, I've said all the wrong things I needed to say. You regret, like, for 3 days you're dying of regret. You're waiting for the phone to ring, thinking that, okay, somebody's going to put you behind bars or whatever. You figure out that the person hasn't even put the things together. So, yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know whether that's luck or it's basically that you have thought a little bit too much into.
Between the lines.
Which is normally the case, because you realize at a certain point the person has not even figured out what you're talking about.
So over to you now, your turn. What questions would you like me to answer looking at your handwriting?
What makes my mind tick, and what do you think, looking at the way I write, makes you understand that maybe, I have a different way of thinking? Does it give you any kind of an explanation, or
So I feel
does it make
when
you laugh?
So when it comes to looking at a norm and finding an emotional connect with where you want to take the journey is the most important part. Now, most of the time, you discount the emotional journey because you speak in logic. You speak in what one must do and what one should not do when it comes to your explanation to other people, because of your experience, and also, I would say, lack of articulation of the whole story. You only give people the pointers they require to understand or know. But when it comes to your way of looking at a project, it's a completely emotional space. You look at things, and the things that connect with you, turn you on, things that you feel curious about, you keep gathering them. And gathering them, by that I mean sometimes over some months, over some years, you actually keep gathering these references. And then when you start creating a process, or even when it comes to making decisions, you start connecting some unrelated things. So when other people, including your wife, when they look at your process, they do not find any linearity. So do you really have this weighing mechanism? Yes. But the weighing scale is not about what is the right thing or the wrong thing. It's about, does it fit me, or does it fit the narrative that I'm trying to build? And because the narrative is not clearly defined for other people, they fail to see what you can see. They fail to understand where you're actually taking the journey. And this is where the conflict and confusion comes from. But for you, in your mind, if you do not follow that narrative, no matter what you do, it always keeps you restless. I would not even say makes you restless, because you're mostly operating from that creative space where you are restless to express your connections, but it keeps you. So until I feel if you have done justice to the collection that you have made, or done justice to the project that you have completed, you feel, the word empty might not be the correct word, but you feel that you have, you feel exhausted, and you keep chasing that sense of wanting to feel exhausted, which is so different than most people. They want to continue, they want to take it to the next level. For you, it is chasing the next exhaustion, where you want the process to consume you. You want the process to consume you. You want the process to surprise you. So you literally put these particles, these pieces into the bowl, and you keep waiting for the bowl to tell you where to take the next, decision step. So,
I think that's the reason I'm exhausted most of the time.
if you haven't suffered, for Ramesh, it's like if he hasn't suffered, if he hasn't been through agony, it's not worth it.
That I think that's also another way of putting it. But I was like really getting to that agony as a word. So if he doesn't feel the grind or the process was intense enough,
that means I haven't put in my heart and soul. Right? It's always something. It's totally there.
And what you're talking about, what you're talking about. For other people, because they do not see the background, they do not see why are you saying whatever you're saying, they question it. And for some reason, you do not have the patience, you do not have the willingness also to explain the whole story. So you kind of start jumping the bars and you start, pushing them through. And that is annoying for sure for others. That is,
I get angry with myself and I get angry with them.
No, but it's also useful because if you understand the process, when you want to convince somebody else about a project that you want to do, and because for them, they don't see why you want to take it in such and such a direction, when you understand the process, you can better explain it to them.
Yeah.
So I would not say building patience would be a good idea, but what I would highly recommend is create.
I've tried it.
No, it won't work for you because what is like if you decode patience as an idea is literally staying in the process to make sure that other people are on board with you and you feel comfortable. But at the same time, you're extremely patient when it comes to pursuing that final idea. So as I was saying that if it may take years for you to get to that point and you will just wait for it. And everybody's like, oh, this is the right time, sell it off or don't do it, don't be bothered. And you're like, no, this is not the time because I haven't seen the final idea. So are you an impatient person? No, not at all. You're highly patient when you're engaged. But with other people, you're not very engaged with them. So with their conversations, with their questions, you're not highly engaged. So that becomes a challenge. And when
it's a serious problem.
So working with your team, I'm going to say something that you already know about yourself, but I'm going to articulate it anyways. So people, when they look at you, they think that Ramesh is a great guy to work with, but a very difficult person to work with.
Yeah, they suffer at a certain point of time. But it's again interesting because I have what I call the faithful followers, which are very small. The rest of them, like, they can't stand the sight of me after some time.
You also have a lot of admirers. So they love you or they love your work. They love how you break the patterns. But coming closer to you and actually working with you is tough. And I don't even know whether you really want to make it easier for others. But the only thing you have to keep in mind is you don't make it difficult for your own stress levels, because I do see that as a challenge. I
take it on myself.
You internalize stress, and at the very moment that happens, you start going away from the process that you're fighting for. And that must have happened many times for you that, I knew this was so important and I wanted to walk on that path, but everything else in between became more significant than the actual journey that you're committed to.
Very true, yeah.
No, there are people.
It continues happening.
There are people whom you have. There are so many people that Ramesh has mentored because the minute he sees a spark of
talent,
or even just somebody who is willing to go beyond, just a superficial, he will push them. The minute he sees a spark, he will push them.
Some accept and
some don't want to be pushed. Some don't accept.
And it's really not. It's again coming back to the story of you have gotten something in life because of certain things, certain people. Can you pass it on? And the passing on doesn't mean to get glory or whatever. It's just passing on because I think it's a good thing to do. You've not had the door open at a certain point of time, and you just
want to keep the door open for somebody who is really willing.
Yeah.
Now, Ramesh, I feel
on your face 20 times, but it's fine.
So, one of the things I feel that you struggle with is your prioritization.
Very much. Totally. Right in front of me, priorities. I have no idea what I'm doing.
So that becomes like the biggest challenge while making the decisions that we were speaking about. So
it's a horrible thing. the prioritization thing is a very horrible thing because it's like it screws you up so much. And then I admire people in a very ugly way, in a certain way, certain thought, because I admire people who it's not a question of prioritization, but they have, you have like friends or people who I have worked with, they are willing to just drop things to do something else because that is their priority. And I'm busy struggling with trying to do all the 4 things at the same time. And a lot of those things are not visible to anybody else. It's just visible to me. But I'm sitting there and trying to figure out what the bloody hell am I trying to do.
So it comes from 2 things. One is wanting to be perfect, or I would not use the word perfect, but to give your best shot, possible shot in the situation, and the commitment to do that. So if you have delivered a project, you know that this has to match my own standards. That's one thing. And second thing, it comes from not knowing exactly where you're taking the journey, because you have so many random thoughts coming your way. So you would not know. You would not know. And
there's a big fog around somewhere.
Yes. And suddenly, and so because the inspirations drive you, until and unless the inspirations do not happen, you feel that sense of feeling stagnated. You're like, okay, I know the inspiration will happen, but I don't know when and where and how to create it. So all I got to do is wait it out, and which is
it's still something very difficult because for artists it's easy, but when you're in a design process, a lot of times what you see happening is people are okay to accept and give mediocrity. When you're something as dumb as me, I sit and fight myself to sit and say, hey, what if I was the buyer sitting there and accepting something else? And you have these 2 voices trying to fight inside your head. And,
I'm asking this question out of curiosity. So after putting so much of love and so much of care, when you see people do not understand the actual thought behind it, how do you feel?
Terrible. 500 times a day. Yeah. You terrible for... I don't feel bad for myself, no. Very rarely do I feel self-pity in any sense. I just feel that they have lost out. It's like, you tell, have you eaten a mango straight from the tree?
Sure.
Yeah. And a lot of people who've eaten mango, we've eaten a mango, but have you eaten that mango? You say, you know that somebody's missed out something in life, and you're trying to make them understand that taste.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. That's, I think, a little bit of frustration falls in that kind of way. And then you realize at a certain point of time, it's their taste, it's their mango, it's their that's how it is. Yes, it is extremely frustrating.
So
extremely frustrating.
My next question to you is, I know you have had many ups and downs in your journey and the way you have chosen certain choices in your life. Which was your favorite failure?
What's my favorite failure? There's so many big, fat, huge ones. I really won't say that I have had failures in any way, because I don't know what would have happened. Talking about, a lot of times I think 4 years sitting in Manjeri trying to do one stupid zoology. A lot of times I go back. It was the prime of your life. You're like in your 18, 19 years old. I would have loved to have been somewhere else doing something else. I guess you need to. There are times when you wake up and you say, hey, "Listen, I'm of a certain age. I see designers now who are like 20 years old who are doing amazing stuff. Does it make me feel bad? No, it doesn't. Because there is a thing we need to, I think, realize at a certain point. Also, I have friends of mine who are musicians, and we've had the similar conversation because there's somebody who's very famous who's a singer of a band from the 70s. 70s they were gods. Now they are not as big as whatever. But And you have like a youngster rapper who's made one song and he's like
popular around the globe.
Everywhere around the globe. It's just, I think it's a matter of time. It's a matter of, and you have to give in to time. One of the most important things. We are all bound with a certain restricted time that we get. So I don't think there is any question of regretting or saying that I could have done better in this. Yes, maybe I could have changed a few things, and again, that I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I think what those mistakes or whatever I feel are mistakes maybe taught me something. I really don't know. I've never been able to break down. But every time you've taken a good step, you realize that yes, that might have come from that experience which I had. That bad experience that I've had. So no, I really don't think so. Okay. I don't regret.
Sure. My last question to you, Ramesh. Do you have any quote, any mantra, any statement that you go by that you feel has helped you through your process?
What can I say? It's about perfection, and it's always something which is perfection is not by accident. It's a choice that you make. So everything that you think is perfection. It's choice. And I think everybody has their levels of perfection, whether you're as a human being, your work, your thoughts. And one of the things is don't ever be...
So you're referring to pursuit of excellence?
It's a pursuit of excellence, yeah. Excellence cannot be, it's again something interesting is because excellence like design is you cannot teach. It's either there in you or
you don't have it.
You don't have it. Yeah. No school, no teacher can teach you how to design or be excellent if you don't have it in you. It's a part of what you are. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was an eye-opening and a wonderful conversation, and the journey was fascinating. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ramesh.
So much, and
In each moment of defeat or failure, Ramesh found ways to grow, bounce back, and redirect himself. In spite of being aware of his limitations, he kept pursuing his passion, his next inspiration. Oprah Winfrey once said, "Passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you." In our Friday episode, let's explore how you can look at rejections as redirections. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Absolutely Right. Please review, comment, and share this podcast with anyone who can get benefited by these conversations. Also, send me your questions on my Instagram handle @Aditi Surana. For this entire month of October, we are doing a special awareness drive around calmness called Kama Sutra with Aditi Surana. Every day for 12 minutes, I do a handwriting-based meditation process on my Instagram handle, live at 8:30 in the morning. All the details are mentioned on aditisurana.com/Kamasutra, CLM. If you like this podcast, then don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
guys, this is Ayushi.
And I am Ritasha.
And welcome to Agla Station Adulthood.
It's a fun podcast we've got going on, and we'd love for you to tune in and enjoy with us.
Join us as we stop at various stations and discuss different topics that seem to be bothering us and hopefully
Dating,
you as well.
relationships, beauty, just being an adult, lots of different things.
We don't have a great grip on it, but we've done okay so far.
Catch Agla Station Adulthood every Thursday on the IVM app, the IVM website, or wherever else you get your podcasts.